The city of Hiroshima was quiet that morning. Too quiet, as if the world itself was holding its breath. The sun had just begun to climb the sky, touching the tiled rooftops and narrow streets with a gentle gold. Children hurried to school, women hung laundry in the breeze. An old man watered his garden, humming an old song. Life moved on, unaware that in a few moments the sun would fall from the heavens. Among those awake was a little girl named Aiko, only 7 years old. She was tying her shoes when she heard a sound like thunder from the sky. She looked up, and the sky turned white. The world dissolved in light. She never finished tying that shoe. They say ghosts haunt the places they cannot leave behind. But sometimes it's the living who are haunted by the faces, the screams, the memories that time can never bury. When the bomb struck Hiroshima, Dr. Kenji Arakawa was at the window of Shima Hospital. In one heartbeat, glass, air, and light collided. When he opened his eyes, there was nothing, just dust and silence. The hospital walls had collapsed. The air itself felt thick with ash and pain. He stumbled outside and saw figures walking in the haze, slow, silent, unrecognizable. Their skin peeled away, their eyes blinded, their mouths whispering one word again and again. "Water, please," he ran to help. Though his hands trembled, he had no bandages, no medicine, no tools, only compassion. He tore his own shirt to wrap wounds. He poured water from a broken pipe into trembling hands. He told them, "Hold on," even when he knew they wouldn't. For days he didn't rest. The cries became fewer, softer, until only the wind remained. When he finally returned home, his wife and son were gone, vaporized. Their shadows burned into the wall behind the kitchen table. He fell to his knees, his heart shattering. From that day on, he became a man of silence. Even as the city rebuilt, he could not. He worked again at a hospital, treating survivors. But something in him was missing, as if his soul had been buried in the ruins. At night, when the halls were empty, he walked past the beds, whispering names no one else remembered. Nurses called him the ghost doctor, not unkindly, but with awe. They said sometimes he spoke to patients who weren't there. But in the quiet, Dr. Arakawa swore he could still hear a child's voice, a soft whisper calling his name. "Sensei." Far away, another man carried his own ghosts. Takeshi Nakamura was a photographer who once captured the beauty of life: weddings, festivals, cherry blossoms. On that August morning, he was in his studio when the light consumed everything. He survived by chance, hiding under a fallen beam. When he crawled out, his camera was cracked, but still working. He lifted it with shaking hands and took a picture, not of beauty, but of what remained of it. He saw things no one should ever see: a mother holding a child who would never wake, a boy standing over a melted tricycle, a schoolyard littered with lunchboxes, and on the steps of a bank, a shadow, the outline of a man burned into stone, all that was left of him. Takeshi took photo after photo, his tears blurring the lens. When soldiers arrived, they told him to stop, to destroy the film. But he couldn't. He whispered to himself, "If no one remembers this, they will die again." He buried the negatives under the ruins of his studio, promising that someday someone would find them. He died a year later from radiation sickness, his body thin as paper, his lungs scorched. Yet, decades later, his granddaughter discovered the hidden box while clearing the old house. Inside were rolls of film, brittle with age. She developed them in the red glow of the darkroom. She swore she heard faint voices whispering, "Don't forget us." When the photos were exhibited for the first time, people cried in silence. They saw faces history had hidden, faces that looked back at them through the smoke of time. And in those black and white frames, the ghost of Hiroshima spoke again. Across the ocean, another ghost lived, not in the ruins, but in guilt. His name was Edward Miles, a former American pilot. In 1945, he flew the Enola Gay, the plane that carried the bomb. He was 25, proud, and convinced it was the right thing to do. They said the bomb would end the war, save lives, bring peace. He never questioned it. When the order came, he obeyed. He remembered watching the silver object fall through the clouds, counting seconds, and then the world exploded in light. From thousands of feet above, it looked like the birth of a star. His crewmates cheered. Mission accomplished, someone said. But Edward could not speak. He stared at the cloud rising into the sky. Beautiful, terrible, endless. That night he couldn't sleep. For years, he tried to live normally, married, had children, worked a desk job. But every night, he saw the same light behind his eyelids. He could not pray. He could not forget. People called him a hero, but he knew the truth. Heroes don't have nightmares. In 1975, he returned to Japan, an old man searching for forgiveness. When he arrived in Hiroshima, he expected anger. Instead, he found quiet. The city was alive again. Children laughing. Cherry trees blooming. Life reborn where death had reigned. At the Peace Memorial Park, he met an old woman with kind eyes and a small scar on her cheek. She asked his name. When he told her, she nodded. "I was a child when the light came," she said softly. "My mother carried me through the fire." Edward's voice broke. "I'm sorry," he said. "I've been sorry all my life." The woman smiled gently. "You cannot undo the past, but you can carry it with care." That night, Edward dreamt of the sky again. But this time, instead of fire, he saw children releasing paper lanterns into a river. One of them, a little girl with short hair, looked up at him and said, "You remember now. That's enough." And that girl was me. My name is Aiko. I was 7 when I became light. They call me the ghost of Hiroshima. But I am not a curse. I am a memory. I am the echo that keeps the world from forgetting. Every August, when the bells ring at 8:15, I walk among the living. I see school children placing flowers at the memorial. I see lanterns floating on the river, each carrying a wish, a prayer, a name. The water glows, not from fire this time, but from hope. I watch Dr. Arakawa's grandson at the same hospital, tending to the sick with hands steadier than his grandfather's ever were. I watch Takeshi's granddaughter guiding visitors through a gallery of ghosts, her grandfather's photos hanging like windows to another world. I watch Edward Miles' son visiting the museum, standing before the photograph of the mushroom cloud, whispering, "My father carried this weight, so I wouldn't have to." And as I drift between them, I realize something. Ghosts do not live in ruins or darkness. We live in hearts that remember. Hiroshima is no longer a scar. It is a heartbeat. Every cherry blossom that blooms here is a whisper of forgiveness. Every bell that rings a prayer for peace. People ask me, do ghosts ever find rest? I think we do. Not when we're forgotten, but when we are remembered with kindness. When someone looks at our shadows and still sees light. I have wandered this city for 80 years, and I have seen it rise again and again, stronger, gentler, wiser. The same sun that once destroyed now nurtures. Children play where ashes once fell. Lovers meet under trees that grew from poisoned soil. The world moved on, but it did not forget. The doctor found peace in his work, helping others live. The photographer found immortality in his art, showing the world our faces. The pilot found redemption in truth, acknowledging the weight of his actions. And I found my voice through them. Through their pain, I learned that remembrance is love's final form. If you ever walk through Hiroshima's Peace Memorial Park, you might feel a soft breeze brush your cheek. That's me, a child who never grew old, still watching, still hoping. When you see the lanterns floating on the river, remember, each light is a promise that the world will never let the sky burn again, that we will rise not from fire, but from compassion, because the bomb fell only once. But silence can fall forever if we let it. So please do not be silent. Speak of us. Tell our story. Remember the doctor who tried to heal, the photographer who refused to look away, the pilot who sought forgiveness, and the child who forgave them all. I am the ghost of Hiroshima, not here to haunt, but to remind, to whisper softly into the ears of the living. Peace is not the absence of war. It is the courage to remember. And as long as you remember, I will never truly be gone. The river flows, the bells ring, the sky glows once more, not with fire, but with the lanterns of the living. And in that light, for the first time in 80 years, I smile, because the world has finally learned to listen.